What's up?
What's up?
We are back. I want to welcome you guys in for another intimate conversation about some things that are extremely important.
hmm
But before we get into all that, what's going on with you?
I'm good. How are you? How are you feeling? How was your week?
Um, I feel like there's a lot going on. We just
hmm
moved
Yes.
literally to the apartment next door.
Just
Like when I
crazy.
say next door, I don't mean the building next door. I mean the actual apartment next door. So we've been just trying to get our place together.
Yes.
You are also 37 weeks today.
Yes. I think that's crazy in itself to be doing such a move. I
No.
mean, it was an easy move, but it's still a move. So there's still a lot of
Hmm.
organizing to be done
Yeah.
at 37 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
Any day now.
Yeah.
And our crib is not put together.
The crib is not together. The crib should be together because I think that was another like a shot at me. But I feel like the crib will be together by tomorrow. So hopefully Aria doesn't come. And
Well, I
speaking
hope
of
it's
Aria,
together by the time they see it, or else I tell them to hold you
speaking
accountable.
speaking of Aria, we just came from the doctor. She just did her last ultrasound. You just did your last ultrasound, and we got the 3D pictures. And Aria definitely looks like me.
Ultrasounds can be a little deceiving. We'll see
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
she gets here.
Yeah.
I definitely think that she'll have your nose from all of the 3D
Yeah.
ultrasounds that
Yeah.
we've seen.
And it was a couple. She was like closing, putting her fingers in or her hands in front of her face, like no pictures. That's definitely more of me than.
That's definitely you.
So yeah, she like
We'll
pops. I'm letting
get
you
her out of
know,
that.
Daddy. I'm letting you know who I'm. I'm more like you. I look like you. I'm acting like you.
Yeah, we'll see.
She gonna be a daddy's girl.
She's just not used to the camera yet.
She gonna be a
She'll have
daddy's girl.
plenty of time
Oh,
to
I'm
adjust.
sure of it. I'm sure of it. There's gonna be a camera in her face. Come on, baby. And reels. We gonna be making her. She gonna be earning her way.
As long as she does, she won't have her own Instagram.
Yeah, thank God for that. Oh Lord. But you know what? You say that now,
I was just about to say that. Maybe I shouldn't say that on
because
camera.
that could definitely change. That could definitely change. But anyway, how are you?
I'm well.
Mm,
I think as well as I can be. I don't feel like everybody asks me, am I at the point where it's just kind of like, get this baby out of me?
mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'm there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I will say it is getting increasingly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as sleeping.
Because her head is down.
Yeah, she is. Head down. She's ready to go,
Yeah, she
which
ready.
is a blessing.
Yeah, she ready.
But yeah. I
It's
think
all good
if
stuff,
if she
man.
could just give me like a couple more weeks, I might be taking those words back, and I
Yeah.
would definitely be like, "Get this baby out of me."
Yeah,
if I'm
because
approaching
39,
40.
oof, that would be a lot. But nonetheless, it's just a lot to be thankful for. It's a lot to be grateful about. Yeah, man, I'm just a happy husband, a happy father.
Yeah.
I'm just super excited. But yeah, so let's get into this conversation.
Yeah.
Let's
So
get into this
what are we talking
conversation.
about today? I feel like with everything that is going on in our world, there's also just a lot,
Yeah.
a ton going on in
The world. in
the
general.
world.
Yeah.
The world. One of the
Yeah.
biggest things. It's a couple weeks
Yeah.
going on, or it's been going on for a couple weeks. But
Yeah.
these conversations around marriage and infidelity and broken engagements. I know Nia Long, Ime Udoka,
Yeah.
they're going through something which we don't know the details
Don't know
of.
the details.
But,
And let me also just say this. We understand that, because they are in the public light, Nia Long is she's a celebrity. Emu Udoka is the one of the premier black coaches for the Boston Celtics. So we know that they're in the public eye. So we're not trying to make them the topic of discussion in the sense that we're making them a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely
Or
not.
this is like a form of gossip of what they should have did or didn't do or what happened or what didn't happen. So I just want to put that out there. And then also for anyone who has experienced infidelity, anyone who has went through any form of cheating, as far as how culture names it, this is not to shame or slight anyone. So I just want to make sure we said that.
Yeah, before we even say what we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we gonna go there, so we gonna talk about it. Might as
We're
well just put
definitely
it
gonna
out there.
go there. But I think it's a conversation, like even with Tia Mowry, was it Tia or Tamara? One of the sisters.
I couldn't tell you. Sister,
But
sister.
there's this conversation that's going on. So I think that's why we think that it's important, not necessarily to discuss those people and their situations, but the larger topics of marriage
A
and
lot of people are talking
infidelity
about it.
and divorce and broken engagements, things like that. So
Yeah. So, but I think another reason why it kind of led us to like even just this first question that we're going to ask is because there's so much speculation around what he did.
yeah,
Right. It's like, was there, was it an inappropriate remark? Was it, an affair? Was it just a one-time thing? Was it something that, that could have led to something else that wasn't as big as it, they make it seem? And then we got to this point where it's just like, okay, what is cheating?
yeah.
What is cheating? So, yeah, give me your perspective on that.
I think that, so like we said, like them aside, it led us to the conversation of what is cheating. And in my opinion, cheating is very subjective.
Very.
You have adultery, which there's a clear definition for.
Which is a biblical
Yes.
definition.
Right. So having sexual intercourse or physical intercourse outside of your marriage.
Sexual activity. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so any type of sexual activity outside of your marriage. When we talk about cheating, I think it's more subjective because there's no clear definition on it, and
It's cultural.
Yes, it's cultural. It's not a biblical
Yeah.
term. And then what we were talking about is the fact that sometimes from a male to female perspective, that those definitions can change.
Absolutely.
So in my opinion, cheating, this is my opinion, there is no technical definition
Like, let me put this out
for
there.
this.
This is
I mean,
my-
well, it has to be defined. It's cheating. The word cheating has to be in the dictionary.
Yeah,
We should have
it is.
seen what it actually said, what the dictionary says
Yeah,
cheating
well, let me
is.
look it up. Go ahead. But tell me what you're
But
thinking.
in my opinion, I think that I would feel as though you were cheating or I was cheating if I was engaging in any act that I would be uncomfortable with you seeing or you knowing about. And so I know that's very broad, but I think there's even this conversation of like is emotional cheating is definitely a thing. I think anything where you're creating some type of intimate relationship, intimate interaction. It doesn't even have to be a relationship
Yeah.
outside of the person that you were committed to, which
Yeah.
also would include someone that I'm not married to,
Yeah.
but maybe dating or engaged to.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know that, again, cheating is this cultural thing that just comes about. It's not necessarily something that is, you can find in scripture, but it is tied to principle. It is almost synonymous to adultery, but we know adultery is pretty clear, right? We know adultery is, a man or a married man or a woman who is having sexual activity with someone that is not his or her spouse, right? But it's just like, all right, so if adultery is that in itself, it's just like, so if I catch my spouse saying I miss you, to someone else, it's just like, okay, that's not necessarily adultery,
No,
but that is an issue, right?
absolutely.
And I think that we were talking about this earlier. We were just saying like how, well, first off, we just need to define what is adultery is it is what it is, right? Cheating is things that I believe that are wrong, but also can lead to adultery. So we were just saying like how many decisions like do you have to make before you even get to the point of adultery?
True.
Right? So it's just like if I'm having, if I'm having a conversation with someone and it's flirtatious, it's like that's one decision, okay? But then if I like that flirting, interaction and it makes me, excited to want to talk to him again, then that's another decision. And then it's like we go from one conversation to the next to like, oh, now I really enjoy these conversations.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, now we're starting to like bond a little bit. Now I'm starting to feel emotional connection to you. And then from an emotional connection that can lead to now I have an affinity for you. Now I have some care for you. Now I have some love for you. And we know that when we love somebody or care somebody, we want to express it in a physical way, right?
Okay.
Which leads to, adultery,
Adultery.
right? Or whatnot.
So you're saying that sometimes it's not necessarily that they are different versions or synonymous, but that cheating can lead to adultery.
I think that cheating is wrong in itself, right?
Okay.
But
Anything
I think that
wrong.
I think that is wrong in itself. But like you said, cheating is so subjective. But the main thing is more so, the main issue is more so about the sexual intercourse that comes about. But sexual intercourse doesn't necessarily just happen like out of nowhere. We were talking about this earlier. Like if there was 1,000 opportunities to like, commit adultery, like it would be like that one time, like it was just rare where you were just coming out your hotel and you just seen a woman, she seen you, and you both had just this lustful attraction for each other, and then y'all just had sex. There needs to be a series of events that happens or whatnot, and I think that that's something that's kind of like not really like, I'm not gonna say appreciated, but it's overlooked. And when
Process.
in the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that there are several decisions that are made. You don't just fall into a situation, in my opinion, fall into situations. I do believe that we can all have weak moments.
Absolutely.
I do believe that. And I believe that temptation is real. However, I think that there are certain things that, certain decisions that are made along the way that either build us up to be better equipped to resist the temptation when it arrives, or not, because we haven't prepared ourselves to fight or flee the temptation. I mean, because really we should be avoiding or fleeing it. We'll talk more about that later. But you said something where you said that there is this, that ultimately you think that the physical part is you said the more important, or the...
Yeah. So earlier we were talking about like the emotional cheating and the physical cheating or whatnot, right? And you were saying for you that emotional, could mean more, can mean more to you.
Well, I think that sometimes,
not to minimize physical.
Right. Not to minimize physical, but I think that an emotional, I was saying that sometimes I think men and women have different reactions to different kinds of cheating. So obviously, and then right now it's kind of like we're using cheating and adultery interchangeably, which they're not necessarily the same thing. However, I think that as a woman, and I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, that sometimes emotional cheating can be more impactful.
Wow.
Because in my mind, emotional cheating, if there's emotional cheating, then you are building a more intimate bond. And right now I'm talking about like, even if we were just dating, right? Not necessarily married. So if you had intercourse with this person, it wouldn't necessarily be adultery, right, but still cheating. Yes. And fornication, right? But this idea that you are building this emotional bond, to me, feels like more of a threat to our relationship.
They have your heart, right?
Or our marriage, right? Because now I'm wondering, like, does this person have your heart? Does this person, is there something more? Because we tend to think of men in general, not all men, and this is not always the case, but we tend to think of men as more sexual beings. So it is not foreign to feel like, oh, it was just sex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which that's not always the case, but in certain instances, we might think like, oh, it was just sex. And when I say it's just sex is not just sex, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But I think that when we feel like that there's some emotional attachment with that sex or without it, just an emotional attachment in itself, that is more worrying. More worrying.
Yeah.
More like, I'm just wondering, like, it just feels like more of a threat too.
Yeah, it's like but it's like, if I like I asked you before, if you saw me texting a woman and I said I missed you, or I loved you, like, that's like tough. But then it's like, compare that to like you walking in on me like having sex with a woman.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, it would be.
I think well, walking in, I think that's very dramatic. I mean, I think that's like that's like movie type stuff. Like that's how people get killed.
Yeah, I was like, you really want me to say I'll kill you on camera,
Yeah,
or
because I mean, that's how people get killed. You know, you walking in like that's a whole nother level of. I think that's adultery like 2.0. Like you get caught, oh man. But no, I get what you're saying. Though I think that like because men we're like. We are sexual beings. We're naturally turned on by sight. Sex is not something that we want. We need it, right? So if I am like, it's something that we need, right? So if I am like, I done lost my train of thought what I was saying.
I think so for example, if we take our marriage out of it, you have, before you rededicated your life to Christ, you have had sex with plenty of women that you had no emotional attachment to.
Yeah.
So it was literally just sex.
Yeah, but I was going with look. That's the pregnancy brain that I get from my wife. But no, I think that So before, when I was like by myself, when I was single, when I was kind of doing my thing, there was no emotional attachment. 99% of the women that I slept with, I could like say that I probably didn't really have no type of care for. But now as a married man, there is an emotional connection. Like with you, like I don't understand how a married man be like, they can just still have sex with their wives when they mad. Like if I'm mad at you or you mad at me, like, oh, excuse me, until we kind of like make up, I don't really know if I'm really interested in engaging in an intimate, sexual, intercourse with you, because I feel like it's emotional as well. But I feel like for women, like y'all, you can't like you always talk about this. It's not like this thing where you can just jump into it. It has to feel some type of emotional, like you have to feel like at ease. You have to feel kind of like your mind is not, your mind is there. It's a mental thing. It's an emotional thing. So you don't just jump into sex like we can. So I could see how you can look at it and be like, well, you got an emotional connection with this person. Like what's going on over there? What is the issue, whatever? And I can see how that's like, how that can really affect you. But on the flip side, me as a man, it's just like, even though sex could be like a non, impactful thing emotionally for most men, if I was to hear that, you had sex with another man, I would be devastated, because for us, it's like this is my wife. And when you give sex to me, like when you initiate sex or when you like satisfy me, I feel like, thank you. Like, you're showing me love, because that's how, as a man, that's a part of how I receive your love. So if you give sex to somebody else, it's like, dang, you giving my love away? Like, that's how it feels.
So you're saying that from your perspective, that would be more detrimental. The physical would be more detrimental than the emotional connection.
Absolutely.
So if you saw me selling another guy, I missed you.
There would be an issue there. I would be angry. I would definitely be. But we would have to really like have some serious conversations about that and work through that. But as far as like a conversation about like us separating, would come from actual sexual intercourse.
Okay. And I
believe the same. I believe the
because
same with you too.
Absolutely, because I think we are also teetering the line between who we are as a kingdom couple versus the worldly views of the sex, right? Because we know that as Christians, like I said earlier, that sex is not just sex. It's not just physical, especially a married couple. You know what I mean? Like, we are married, so sex is so much deeper. Than, there's issues even before you're married, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that is where we, like, before, when I was saying before you rededicated your life, you didn't have this emotional connection to sex, right? But now, being a married man and a kingdom man, that you can't have sex without some emotional.
Yeah. So if I was to actually like, cross that line, like there needs to be like a bond there. But then that kind of goes into what we were talking about, as far as like, is anybody, above like, cheating, or
being cheated on,
well, that's a whole nother conversation. Now, I do want to say this. When people, so I seen a meme. It was like, Sierra. It was like Sierra, Beyonce. No, I'm sorry. It was Nia Long, Beyonce, Sierra, and Michelle Obama. It had an X across Nia Long and Beyonce, and it said, Sierra, you next. And and then it was just like this thing, like, you cheated on Nia Long, like,
You cheated on Beyonce.
you cheated on
You cheated
Beyonce.
on Halle Berry.
You cheated on Halle Berry. It's like as if like people have to understand it doesn't matter like who the person is. Like anybody can be cheated on or anybody could commit adultery because we're all inherently sinful individuals.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that we got to kind of get out of that mindset where it's like, oh my gosh, you cheat on this person, because it's more so about you're cheating on the celebrity or you're cheating on the influencer than you're cheating on the human being.
Yeah.
Or you're being cheated on, because that person is still flawed. That person still has their issues. So whoever's married to him or related to him, or connected to him or whatever form or fashion, they still have their struggles as well. So we got to stop looking at people to this standard that as if like they can't fall or they can't, be cheated on or somebody commits adultery against them or whatnot. I think that perspective, like it almost like is very like shallow. And it doesn't give you the real image of marriage, because again, it makes you feel that marriage is like supposed to be like this perfect thing, especially if you got like this perfect one or
Right.
this person everybody praises.
Yeah. I mean, I can say I've been
better go
cheated
there.
on, not in my marriage. Thank God. And like we said earlier, this is not to shame anyone who has experienced that or who has fallen in their marriage. But I have been cheated on in serious adult relationships. And I think also I'm not a celebrity and I'm not Beyonce or Nia Long, but I received the same kind of response in a sense of like, you cheated on Ariane? Or it was just like, I'm not going to lie to you. I was thinking like, you cheated on me?
Who did you receive that response from?
Myself at times.
And who else?
I was like, I'm that girl. You would cheat on me?
And who else?
And I'm just like, huh?
No, and who else? Who else did you receive that response from? People that knew you, right?
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely.
the point. Like, these people don't even know them.
Don't know them. But even people who know me, I was not above that experience. You know what I mean? Because that goes into play of just like, there's nothing that I can do. And I think that's what it is. Like something in our minds say that because of these people's beauty or their status or the surface level things that we know about them, that would have prevented them or that would have stopped their significant other. And right now we are only talking about females being cheated on. Men get cheated on too. So we also want to give that disclaimer. But to the point of your meme, we often look at someone's beauty or status as some type of protectant. From being cheated on. Same thing with myself. I felt like I was a good girl. I did like, and obviously like this is pre-rededication, but you know what I mean? Like I am doing all of these perfect girlfriend things that, and you still would do this. And so I think that begs to the conversation of, is anybody above it? Beauty, status, acts of service, whatever you're doing, there's really nothing that would guarantee that you are not going to be.
And I think that's why they say love is like the bravest act of the soul, right? Because you're literally giving somebody the ability to destroy you emotionally. You're giving somebody,
or try to,
or
momentarily,
momentarily. But I mean, in that moment, your life can literally just like crumble at a snap of a finger, just by one, look at a text, or someone says something or whatnot, or you find something out. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to love someone. So I can see why people just be like, I'm cool on love, whatever. But that's not the point. But just like, we all are one step, like one breath away from destruction. Like we all can fall short. And I'm saying this from a male perspective. I know you're saying like anybody can be cheated on, which is true, or somebody can commit adultery against you. But on the flip side, we all can fall short. And I think that is why we have to always be mindful and humble ourselves to know, like Like, this can happen to any of us. So when
Yeah.
you're looking at that person and being like, oh, how did they do this or how did they do that? You don't know what was going on at home. You don't know if they felt like they wasn't getting enough sex. They wasn't getting enough emotional support. They wasn't spending enough quality time, whatever the case may be. And a series of events led them to this point where they're just like, I'm tired of this. And they make a decision, which is still not justifiable.
Yeah.
But I can see how, because marriage is tough at times. You go through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, and you're like, you have these moments where if you're not strong enough, or you, like you said, you just get caught in a weak moment, you can fall short. Now, in an affair, that's a whole nother ball game. Like, you just actively, consistently doing it. So,
well, I want to say something to the point that you just said, because you said that the person who fell or committed the adultery or act of cheating, whether emotionally or physically, that they could have some different viewpoint of what's going on at home than we do. And I do agree with that. At the same time, I think that there are situations where there could be, I guess I don't want to put out the narrative either, and I know this isn't what you're saying, but that it is someone's fault, like that the other person did something to cause that. And I know you're saying it's not justifiable, that you're saying it's not justifiable, but even the idea that in some situations you are having enough sex, you have been there emotionally, and this person, for whatever reason, it could have little to do with you. You know what I mean? It could have something to do with the other person that they may or may not know about. But in some situations, I think that especially as women, when we're talking about beauty and status and acts of service and things like that, that when we start wondering like, well, what happened, right? Then we almost start to self-inflict, or kind of, we almost start to feel like there was something that I wasn't doing, right? Yeah. And while there can be, in honest conversations, there can be some accountability of what that person was experiencing. Maybe you were talking to them in a certain way. In other situations, there wasn't anything that they were doing wrong. They were having sex with that partner. I'm just saying that I don't think that in every situation there was something wrong at home. It could be something wrong in them. So even if I'm speaking life into you, right? If I'm speaking life into you, but there's something else going on. Do you know what I mean? So you experience some other trauma that threw you off, even though I'm making love to you. I'm doing all of the things that you just mentioned, as far as like making love, speaking life into you, whatever it might be, and you could still have a weak moment.
No, I agree with that. I do. I think I'm speaking more so from a standpoint of when people fall short because there is something going on at home. Are we good on time? 30. Okay, so I'm like, as far as like, it doesn't have to be like one-sided. I just think that in many cases, and again, it's not justifiable, and it's not to like, because I know like, a woman, could be, a man can fall short, her husband can walk out on a marriage, and then she starts to think like, what did I do wrong? And starts to beat herself up, and then she feels guilty for whatever the case may be. And that's a real thing. So it's not to say he cheated on you because you did this and did that. It's not to beat her up or him up or make them feel like less than. But I do think there needs to be accountability in most cases, if not many, when it comes to these situations happening, because there is usually something that's going on. It's not just, I can't say many or most or less or whatever the case may be, but I do know that from the conversations that I've had with people that have dealt with these things, that have experienced these things, there were problems. And I feel like no matter what happened, you are wrong for committing adultery, right? But then it's just like, we can't leave it there. There has to be like, okay, so what led to that point? What were some issues? Because I think that the other person on the flip side can take up accountability for that, and then it can get better. And then I think that there could be some reconciliation.
Yeah.
But so that's my reason for saying that. It's not that, oh yeah, you are, just as much to blame as the person that, walked out. But there needs to be some accountability, whatever. However that looks, whatever that conversation has to be, that's obviously between them.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And I think it's really about like honest accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was talking to you the other day, like, well, did you tell me that this was an issue? This is just hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not even going to put hypotheticals in our, in this situation. But if there was something that male or female felt like wasn't being accommodated for in their relationship, so they sought that, whether it be attention or physical connection or intimacy, somewhere else, and that's what led to their adultery or their cheating.
Yeah.
Was there a conversation prior to that? Did you let that person know that something was missing or that they were needing something? Because
yes, that's true.
what I don't like to hear that has happened is that after the fact, after someone has been caught,
Yep.
now I have all these explanations about how I got here
I agree.
and why I did it.
I agree.
Where there are
No,
conversations,
yeah.
there's no justification. And I guess what I'm saying is that I can only speak from a female perspective, but we tend to internalize and start to now doubt our own appearance, acts of service, identity, what we almost have taken on that role if we're in a situation. Because like we've said several times during this podcast, women do cheat as well. But I'm just speaking from a female perspective if I was the one being cheated on. Because I have experienced that internalization of like, was I not doing enough this? Was I not doing enough this? And mind you, these are situations where I was not married to this person, but now I am questioning, like, what did I not do enough of? Was I not pretty enough? Was I too skinny? Was I too accommodating?
Yeah.
You know, like all of these things. And you can really have this moment of like identity crisis.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think that is a great segue to our last question, which is, what are some things that we can do proactively in order to,
like for those situations to not happen?
yes, or we have talked about the fact that temptation is real and ever present, not ever present, but
No.
yeah, ever present.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a sense that I say all the time, my husband is married, but he's not blind, right? And so what are some things that we can do? Let's talk from a married perspective because we are married. What are some things that we can do proactively to reduce the chance of us experiencing cheating or adultery in our relationship?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. I think that they are, whether married or single, it still applies because just as much as a person, like the only difference in sex, only difference in adultery and fornication is the status, the relationship status, right? But they're still the same act.
Okay.
Or, whatever other, issues that you may have, as far as like lust goes, they're all still the same thing. So I feel like.
Question about that. When you say they're the same thing, I agree in the technicality of it, or I guess like in the act of it. But what I was saying is like, while you were performing the same act as a single man.
I'm gonna get there, but I just feel like I think that's important to note because, there isn't no distinction outside, regardless of like it being adultery or fornication, like there still like was temptation involved. There still was something leading to that point. Okay. But I think that we need to understand first and foremost that temptation is not a sin. And we talked about this actually last week or whatever at YF's event. And I think a lot of times we get so down on ourselves about temptation. At the root of temptation is an attraction that we have or a desire that we have. Like I'm not going to be tempted by, I don't know. I'm not going to be tempted, for example, like if I love to drink, right? Then and somebody puts some alcohol in front of me, that could be a temptation for me. I don't care for alcohol. Like it's not like I absolutely have to have it. It's not a temptation for me. that could be a temptation for somebody else. So I think at the very root of it, you need to identify what it is that you're attracted to.
Okay.
In a sense, you know, in this case, we're talking about
What type of people?
you know, people, whatever. So what are you attracted to? And be honest with your spouse. As a single brother, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
What are you attracted to? And then when you feel that temptation, understand that that's not a sin. That's just your natural, like, proclivity, you know, inclination, whatever, to a certain thing. But what you do with that is, you know, that's where, you know, it becomes an issue. So I think that, and I know we talking, like, people say things like, well, you got to make sure, like, you know, you be praying and you got to be prayed up and, you know, all this and that. And I do want to kind of reiterate that, yes, prayer is extremely important. I will never say prayer is important. You know, being, you know, spiritually mature, reading the Bible is extremely important. But if you think about when Jesus was affirmed by God, right? And after he was baptized, he came about the water and God said, this is my son whom I'm well pleased. By the way, he affirmed him before he ever did any acts as far as his ministry goes, to let us know that his love is unconditional, right? But then right after that, he's led into the wilderness. So Jesus is at like one of the pinnacle points of his life. And then he's led into the wilderness. So what I'm saying is you can be in the prayer closet and you could be on your high and come right out to some temptation.
Walking right by.
Like, I'm talking about you was just in there just speaking in tongues and then it just come right at you. Like, the enemy don't care about how much you pray. Temptation is not looking at like how much you read your word. Like, temptation is going to continue to come after you over and over and over again. But if you know what you like, then you can be better prepared for it. And then it all comes down to you avoiding that instead of, like, you know, fighting it.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that whole, I'd rather be wise than be strong, right? The wise thing is, okay, that temptation come, let me go ahead and flee from that. The strong thing is like, oh, now let me go ahead and stay there. And then I got to fight it. And I'm going to continue to fight it till I get to a point where it weakens my resolve.
Yes.
And then it clouds my judgment. And then wisdom goes away. And then eventually I give into it. And now shame comes in. And then it creates this vicious cycle or whatever. But I think that the main thing is just really, we have to stop trying to fight
temptation. Rather avoid it. And I said this morning that even like we were saying, I think that while still being sensitive to the topic, that it is several situations or several small things that happened along the way that have led to adultery. So it is kind of what we talked about when you don't choose to be proactive.
Yeah.
If we have conversations about your temptations and what would be tempting to you, or what, not even what would be tempting to you, but what you're attracted to, like what are your struggles, what are your weaknesses, those type of things, right? And we have these conversations. We know that one of our things is when we are having an argument or a disagreement, like neither one of us is just going to storm out and leave the house in that situation. And I was saying that for some people, when they are upset and they end up at the bar, right, you have that's one decision. That was the first decision. You didn't cheat, but that was one decision where
that's good.
You have put yourself in a situation where if you're attracted to women who are flirting and in your face and, you know what I mean, like looking the way you want them to look, you just had an argument with your wife, I go here, that's not avoiding temptation. And once I get there, I realize like I'm being tempted, this is tempting to me. But I choose to sit and stay and have another drink. Well, now I'm not fleeing it, right? So
now I'm starting to get influenced.
That's the second decision though, right? Because the first one is I decided that I was not going to avoid the temptation. Then when I was presented with it right in my face, now I'm deciding that I'm not going to flee the temptation. So that's another decision. And then like we were talking about earlier, there's several other steps. Then I have to choose to engage with someone. And then we can't really commit the adultery right in the middle of this bar. So I have to choose to to leave with you.
Yep.
And then I have to choose to
driving the car,
the drive,
opening up the door,
taking out the clothes,
taking off
like,
the clothes. Even that
there's
by itself, like like even if you just started with y'all just being next to each other in the room, there's still steps to even get to that point.
There's several steps. And so,
or even think about it thinking about it this way. Me and you get into an argument. All right, I get on Instagram, I start scrolling. I see a guy page or a lady page I like the picture. Then, you know, they like a picture back. Like it can be that subtle.
That's subtle. And I think that's what we're saying. Like, in a sense of, it's not that we don't have any sensitivity to these situations and
absolutely.
you're having a weak moment, but that in most cases, there were a lot of subtle decisions made along the way that led to an act of where you were not able to ultimately resist that act of adultery or cheating. Absolutely. And so
so again, you know, as we get ready to wrap up, it's like, again, we're not shaming anyone. It's not, we understand that temptation is a very real thing. We understand that people have, you know, their own personal issues that they're going through. We're just trying to give some wisdom, to use in situations or to make people more aware, because the reality of it is that we all deal with temptation in some form or fashion. But if we can identify it and then realize that it takes so many steps, if we can just have that, like, from a foundational perspective, when that temptation comes, we can say, okay, we know this is what I like. Somebody walk past somebody. And temptation doesn't necessarily have to always be about the sex. This is just the conversation that we're having. But it's like somebody walk past, this is what I like. Let me go ahead and get up out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, they smiling, I'm smiling. You know, let me avoid that. So it's just kind of like.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm literally thinking about instances where we joke with some of our friends, and we were just in the hallway the other day. Remember, and we were joking about the temptation, the physicality of female in our building, and how like it was just kind of like, just put your head down and keep walking, just like because it can be ever present, and not that like I'm thinking like, oh, like now I got to worry about you taking the trash out. It's not that. It's just that being aware that temptation is real
thing. It's a
real
thing.
And that we can be proactive in discussing it and talking about what we're doing. Because I was
Instead
telling
of
you,
keeping
like,
it a secret.
Right. Like, you know what type of guy that I like. So if not that I would like, but but if I know if somebody slides in my DMs, it's just like, I already know. Now, I'm not saying every guy that says hi to me is like, he's trying to, no, I'm just saying that there's some.
Every guy that's saying hi to my wife, there's no reason for you to be saying hi to her.
What? In my DMs?
In the DMs. There's no reason. Hey,
you don't have people not speaking to me at all.
Hey, how you doing? What you mean, how you doing? She's fine. What you need? What are you talking about? There's no reason why I'm going to send a message to a woman and say, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? Like, where is this leading to?
Yes.
So I'm just letting you know, brothers. You know, don't try this
one.
Don't
be
okay?
in my DMs, right? But I do not play with that. Like,
go there.
I'm not gonna play with anybody that's in my DMs because clearly I'm married. There's no business proposition happening here. It's different if I do get some emails from. Offers and things like that, but that's different. So we're not saying that you have to be so rigid and like
purpose of it.
I need to keep my head down at all times and not even speak at anyone. We're just saying that there's certain things that we must be,
and that's a small decision, right? So a high can lead to more things or whatnot
when you know what the intention behind that high is.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this was definitely a much needed conversation. I think that it's something that we have to continue to have dialogue about, just in general, with our friends, with our family, with our spouses, with our girlfriend and boyfriend, significant others, whatever the case may be, because temptation is not going nowhere. As long as we live on this God-green earth, we're going to be tempted in some form or fashion at some point in our lives.
Yeah. So it's almost like just be on guard.
Just be on guard. That's when the scripture talks about that. Yeah. But this is the dope conversation.
I think so.
You want to close them out?
I think so.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed this conversation and you want to hear more of them, please, please, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe to our channel, and share it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace.